Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm about to review the Tenacious, but I've been up here for a while. I've moved around a little bit, hiked around the canyon a fair bit today, and I haven't had anything to drink yet, and I haven't had any caffeine yet today, so you're gonna have a mate while I start. Hopefully my throat won't crack this time too. Anyway, this is the Spyderco Tenacious, and it is a Chinese made Spyderco, which is why I own it. That might sound funny if you haven't watched my first impressions or my unboxing video of this knife, or if you haven't watched my Salt 2 videos, because I talk about it in there as well. But I bought this knife specifically because it's a Chinese Spyderco. I wanted to experience the Spydercos from the factories that I hadn't yet. So I got the Salt 2 from Japan, and I got the Tenacious from China. And I had some experience with the Tenacious before getting this one, in the sense that I had a coworker who carried one a ton and handed it to me a couple times to cut things if he already had his knife out. And I've seen them around a lot. I've handled a couple here and there, but I've never owned one, never carried one, never frankly been that interested in them. Funny thing about me, with how much of a Spyderco fanboy I am now, I grew up not really into Spyderco. I always knew Spyderco existed, and I knew people that carried them and liked them, but I just, stylistically, I thought they were ugly. I didn't like the holes, which is hilarious. Now my whole thing is like, holes are greater than studs, right? But my dad carried Benchmades primarily, and because he did and he liked their quality, I just followed suit. I thought Benchmade was like the cool, like in that segment, that was the brand that I kind of picked. That changed when I tried a Para 3 for the first time, and now I'm admittedly kind of a Spyderco fanboy, like a lot of what they do. But by the time that I was into knives and gave Spyderco a real try, like I said, I started with the Para 3. That's way more knife than this, and way more expensive. And so by the time that I tried a Para 3 and I started wanting more Spydercos, I didn't want to go backwards and go to their budget stuff. But for a lot of people, a ton of people in the knife hobby, the Tenacious is one of their gateway knives. And I can see why. So I said in my first impressions review, or first impressions video of this knife, that it's pretty good. I said that a lot. Everything about this knife seems pretty good to me. And I still kind of fall the same way. I've put this knife in pocket a fair bit of times. I think I've carried it realistically probably 4 times. I have a lot of stuff that I'm trying to carry right now so that I can review. So each time that I put it in pocket, I wouldn't switch to a different knife unless I made sure that I did a cutting task with it and I had slipped it in and out of pocket a few times, and I'd at least taken some time to fidget with it and play with it and really feel it out. I want to be very fair in every knife review that I do, and make sure that if there's ever a case where I haven't experienced a knife enough to be speaking from a place of experience, that I'm totally open about that. I've had enough experiences with this one that I feel like I can speak from experience on it. It's pretty good. That's still where I fall. Like, you've got a reasonable blade stock. It's a great stock for EDC, but it's 8CR13 MOV. I don't like 8CR13 MOV. I don't know of any real good arguments for liking 8CR13 MOV. Is it a steel you can sharpen and harden? Yeah, but is it the bottom of the barrel of steels that you can sharpen and harden? In today's day and age, yes, in 2020, this is an absolute budget, like low-end steel. And this is the only knife currently in my possession that's not sitting in a junk drawer. That's an 8CR13 MOV. That said, they treated it well. It's held an edge very well. I've put it through a fair bit of cardboard and stuff. I haven't had any chipping, rolling, no dull spots. Nothing weird is happening here. It's doing fine. And it's ground well. It comes to a nice, thin spot behind the edge. It's really quite thin behind the edge. Like, the profile that they put on this is very good. I have much higher end Spydercos that are a lot thicker behind the edge than this. As a blade profile, starting with a fairly thin stock, having a nice tall flat grind, their kind of signature like leaf-ish shaped blade, it works really well. So as a cutter, as a tool for cutting through material, it's pretty good. Again, not the best I've ever experienced, but it's fine. It does really well. So for most people who aren't knife guys, if you're getting them a knife that's around $50, this is a great option. Is it the best option though? I would argue probably not, especially because if this was an American-made Spyderco, if this came out of Golden, Colorado, and was still all of the same other elements, then for 50 bucks, I could be like, yeah, I might pick it, because I do like buying American when possible. I've got a video on that you can watch too. It's not a hard and fast rule for me. Obviously, I buy stuff that's made elsewhere as well. But if this was a $50 American-made knife and everything about it was identical, but it didn't say China, it said America, and it was actually made in America, then would it be a better value to me than spending the same 50 bucks on a D2 on bearings like Civivi or CJRB? Like, that's a conversation worth having, because even though those knives might have a little bit better material and I would argue in a lot of ways have slightly better fit and finish even, I'd rather support the American company. So I don't know, it would still kind of be a toss-up for me, but I could see why a lot of people would go with this one over the others, because this is an American knife at that point. But it's not. This one's made in China. And I feel like if you're someone who's even just getting into knives and you're really looking at all the options out there of what you can get for your money, and you're on a budget and you're watching knife reviews and stuff, maybe you're watching this video, I don't know, but you're probably not going to land on this at this point. It's gotten so competitive at the $50 mark for knives that this is just, it's not the best buy. It won't be. There are things about it that I love. I love that it's a spider hole. I love that it's a Spyderco. I like the blade shape. I like the grind. The ergos for me are fine. It's not the best Spyderco, but it works. It's a comfortable knife to hold and use. It's good in a variety of grips. It carries okay. Like, everything about it is pretty good. But the problem is that for 50 bucks from China, you can get a great knife at this point. That's the reality. You can get knives that are great for 50 bucks from China. And this is also from China, and it's just pretty good. And so I love that there's a spider on it. I love that it has all that list of things that I just talked about. But at the end of the day, it's just pretty good. And so I think the way, if I can perceive why this knife still exists and why Spyderco still sells a lot of them, it's probably really, if I'm being honest, just the name recognition of people assume because it's got the spider on it that it's a higher quality, that it's built to a higher standard. And is it built to a reasonable standard? Yes. Is it reasonable quality? Yes. But it's not great. It's just, that's the reality. And I don't know. I think it exists for people who have that preference of getting Spydercos, and more power to them. I buy a lot of Spydercos. Sorry about that. There were some trail runners going by. So anyways, I guess let me try to encapsulate this a little bit. I don't want to sound like a broken record. And if you watch my first impressions, this is going to be remarkably similar. But it really is just like, it's acceptable. It's a knife that will do the job of being an EDC knife fine. But you can spend more and get a truly good Spyderco, or a great Spyderco. Like me, I started with the Para 3. Is a Para 3 like 3 times as much as this knife? Yeah, but you get better fit and finish, you get better action, you get a better lock type, you get made in the USA. There's, to me, the Para 3 is worth more than 3 times as much as this. Even the S30V, like base Para 3, if you're trying to get the cheapest Para 3 you can get, it's worth more than 3 times this knife. If I put them side by side, it's more than 3 times more knife than this is. But then also, like, the pretty good nature of this, just it's outclassed at this point. The Tenacious has been around for a long time though, and I'm not even sure how long, but with the people I know who've gotten them a long time ago, I'm gonna say maybe 10 years that the Tenacious has been around. It could be way more than that. It could be slightly less than that. Sorry. But 10 years ago, this knife was probably a lot more compelling. And it probably, the way that Spyderco does their pricing, has even gone up a little bit in pricing compared to what it cost when it first came out. So maybe this knife was 35 bucks when it first came out. or something like that, and you buy it in a gun store or a sporting goods store or wherever you buy knives, if you're not like really a knife guy, like in 2020, how most of us buy online or at these cool local shops, or at 35 bucks 10 years ago, I feel like it's way more compelling. But right now, with how far China has come, like 10 years ago also, Chinese knives were not what they are now. Spyderco is probably still making this in their Chinese factory about the same as they're making this today. But the other players in China have come so far in quality. Like, they have made leaps and bounds to provide really high quality for really low money. And is that kind of a problem for a lot of US knife companies? Yeah, I've got a whole discussion on that where I kind of share the way I feel about that. But if Spyderco is still making this out of their China factory, and I've looked at their other models that come from there, I feel like most of them are kind of like variations of this. It's a lot of this type of thing happening, and now there's a lightweight version of it, which is less compelling to me. And it's just that I feel like they've been passed a long time ago. So is this a knife that I would recommend to people who are looking to buy a knife for about 50 bucks? The answer is no. I wouldn't. I'd either recommend that they step up their budget and get what I would consider to be like a real Spyderco. Not that this is a fake Spyderco or a clone or anything, but like a real, one worth having. Or if they're spending 50 bucks on a Chinese knife, there's better options. There really are. Like, you could spend 30 bucks on a Chinese knife and have it be better than this at this point. You really could, which is a little sad, but it's the reality in my opinion. And so I don't mean to slam this knife. I don't mean to be negative about it, but that's just kind of, that's going to have to be the reality on this one. So anyways, if you are looking for a Spyderco, let me say quick caveat as well, or quick, I don't even know what to call it, shout out. River's Edge Cutlery is where I got this. It's where I got this. It's where I buy every knife that I'm looking for, that they have when I'm looking for it. They are my favorite. They're fantastic. I'm going to link to their site down below, and to their YouTube actually as well. Maybe their Instagram. I'll link to all three. Great guys over there. Is this a knife I personally recommend that you buy from them? No, but I'm not going to stop you if you want to. But they have so many other knives that I would recommend. So they're just awesome over there. I always want to make a point when I'm shooting a piece of gear that I got from them, and even when it's gear that sometimes I didn't get from them, they are so worth giving your business to if you're looking to buy a knife, in my opinion. So check them out. I'm going to link them down below. And yeah, this will be my full review, I guess, of the Tenacious. It's still just pretty good. It's all right. It's fine. It's a knife. It cuts. It does the job of being a knife well. If you buy this knife, is it going to like massively disappoint you? Probably not. You'll probably also think it's pretty good. You'll probably also enjoy cutting with it. If it's something that speaks to you, go for it. Get it. It's just, to me, it's not the most bang for your buck, and I think you can get more for less at this point from China specifically. But that'll be that. Thanks again, River's Edge Cutlery. I appreciate it, guys. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Probably not so much about this anymore, but there's a lot more knives in our future. Don't worry, we're not done yet. Thanks, guys.